Thank you.
Do we do a moment of silence for the bills? Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut.
No one was gonna bring that up.
We're trying to keep the tears in our eyes
I
during the
know.
meeting.
Smoke gets in
The
our
meeting
eye.
or
It's a song.
supposed to be a happy meeting.
Happy meetings. Always happy meetings.
Thought I just did this.
Like you can share.
Oh, right.
That's what I was looking for.
Still furry. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for your patience while we were at executive and getting situated here. May I have a motion in a second to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
I,
Minutes from the previous meeting. May I have a motion in a second to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
I,
Communications. Does anyone have any communications?
well, I think a lot of us received communications, emailed letters regarding the start and stop times. I'm sure, Dr. Genestri, you've gotten a few phone calls and things, and I appreciate the community reaching out with their questions and concerns to us.
I would agree, and I want to clarify something for the audience. If they're going to speak tonight, they certainly can speak at the first information or whatever we call it, open session. There is, again, the concerns we heard about was the new bus times. So they certainly can talk at that point, correct? I'm just asking, I'm not really telling.
Yeah, because we've got it on,
It's in the superintendent. It's on my report.
yeah, it's on your report, sure.
It's on the agenda. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
Thanks.
All right. Unfinished business, we have none. Dr. Genestri, your turn.
Thank you, Mrs. Battaglia. Just a couple of items tonight. Of course, we'll talk about the start and stop times for next year, the proposal for that, and then the report. But wanted to start off by kind of turning it over to Dr. Wilson for a minute to talk about an exciting event that we had at our middle school last week with the Buffalo Math Collaborative. Just again, pushing math education here at Sweet Home and STEM education at Sweet Home. So Dr. Wilson, if you'd like to.
Thank you very much. So this is an exciting partnership with Buffalo State University. And it branches across several districts in the county in which math teachers come together to learn together in our schools. And so our schools kind of become their learning labs. And it's through master teachers. And it's a program that our elementary teachers participate in as well as our middle school. What you see there are pictures from the middle school. This was a session that included Sweet Home Middle, Amherst, Maryville, and Cleve Hill. Those were the districts that came together for this session. The next time they meet, we'll be meeting at one of those other schools and our teachers will go there. This was focused around rethinking identity, helping students connect to who they are as mathematicians. And so really helping, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm just bad at math, right? And maybe that's some experience that they've had growing up. This is about helping them really pull that apart and hone in on the things that they really do well in math and link it to their personal identities. And so helping them see that they really can excel in math, even if they thought they didn't in the past. And so this partnership, we have Dr. Kara Ems, that comes over from Buffalo State, as well as there's another Dr. Wilson there who leads this work, a male, but he leads this work there with our teachers. And they were focused on anchoring in together first on readings. So it's research, it's book, it's materials that link back into math instruction in particular. And then they go in and they use that lens to participate in a lesson that they look at together, they unpack together, and then they debrief on the instructional strategies that are used. So I left very excited after being there. It's a really phenomenal program, and you see that they actually there are other pictures that went out on our website and our social media of our students engaging in this work. So our students actually participated as leaders also. I'd like to thank Dr. Ems over at Bluff State University. We have Jamie Riddick, who is a math coach at Willow Ridge, and we have Dania Zappala over at the middle school, who helped to lead and organize this work, and they are part of the Master Teachers Program.
How many kids participated?
So it cuts across a whole grade level. So actually, they looked at 2 grade levels. They went into 8th grade classes for the morning and then 7th grade classes in the afternoon, and they hone in on one classroom. So the focus is that curriculum across that grade level, but then they hone in on one classroom that they visit. So as teachers, the room was full, I would say about 25 teachers across the 4 different districts.
And then do you have a set date to come back again and do this again?
It's set for the whole year. So the elementary schools, they have their sessions, those meet out of Willow Ridge. And so when they come to Sweet Home, they're meeting over at Willow Ridge. But across all of our elementary schools have the opportunity to join this. And then it's set for the whole year. So we just had that session about a week or so ago, just before the bowl days.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. The presentation that I'm going to give is very similar, if not the same, from a few weeks back, just to kind of reiterate, because I know it's been a topic of discussion for our community. We've established the Building Use Committee a few years ago to really it started off looking at spacing issues in our elementary buildings, and it evolved into how transportation and the buildings kind of coexist. And so we asked our Building Use Committee, because we had several issues that we needed to address with start and stop times for the 25-26 school year. So we asked our Building Use Committee to study start and stop times. And some of the situations that we were faced with is that in working in conjunction and collaboration with our teachers, that each student at Sweet Home would be receiving 15 minutes more of instruction starting in the 25-26 school year. So we knew start and stop times were going to end or were going to change based on that alone. But then we were coupled with the fact that the driver shortage continues to be at crisis levels in our district. And we're still about half the drivers we were prior to COVID. Many of our drivers retired during COVID and did not come back. And then with our workforce now, for every 1 or 2 drivers we sign, we have 2 or 3 retirements. So they've done outstanding work, a lot of overtime work to try and get our students to and from school on time. But we know that's been an issue in the district, and we ran into problems with our split schedule at the elementary level as well. And then there was a lot of talk about recommending a change in the structure of runs to kind of help with the runs going on time. We found that the elementary run in the middle of the high school and the middle school was causing delays, especially at elementary 2 and at the middle school for getting students on time and then home on time as well. So the proposal includes similar bell schedules at the high school and middle school. That grades 6 through 12 would ride the bus together to and from school on the same run to fill our buses and create more efficiencies there. The runs would happen, it would start at the high school, and then about 15 to 20 minutes later, students would go to the middle school for drop off. And then we, as a committee, worked really hard, and thank you, Scott Kennedy at the Transportation Department, to figure out a way that we could put all 4 elementary schools back on the same schedule. We found that the staggered time, while helped us with saving some drivers, really was inefficient and caused delays in our runs, no matter how many times we looked at routes. And because of the driver shortage, we were also recommending a walking radius of 0.25 miles. We figure that's about a 5-minute walk to school for our elementary students to and from school. That would free about 1 bus or 1 run per elementary building for a total of 4 buses, and that's simply because of the driver shortage. So the middle school would have a greatest impact here, and we believe that middle school students would have more time in extracurricular activities in the afternoon, because right now we have the latest end time for a middle school in Western New York. So by moving the middle school schedule, we believe more students and teachers, quite frankly, would participate in extracurricular activities. Middle school students could also be at home in the afternoon to care for their younger siblings. More middle school teachers could host after school activities. The elementary run as the last run of the day and all on one schedule will help eliminate delays. We get closer to our goal of reestablishing after school runs because now drivers would be freed up to do after school runs. And we're going to work hard to have an after school bus at all of our buildings 4 days a week. We're proposing to eliminate the staggered elementary schedule. And then it was really important for the committee to look at times that kind of fell in between current elementary 1 and elementary 2, because we wanted to limit the impact on working families as much as we can. So for elementary 1, it is a later start time of about 20 minutes, but for elementary 2, it's a earlier start time of about 5 to 10 minutes. So as reported out last week, here is our proposal for the high school. Would start at 7:19, instruction would start at 7:19 and go till 2:05. The middle school, 7:40 to 2:24. And at the elementary school, 8:55 to 3:10. Students would get ready at 3:10 and then depart the building at 3:15. Currently, as you will see on here, that the elementary 2 is eliminated because all elementary buildings will be on that 8:55. If accepted, all 8 elementary buildings will be on the 8:55 to 3:10 schedule. So of note, periods in the high school would go from 40 to 42 minutes, same in the middle school. Elementary would see an enhancement in ELA, math, and social and emotional instruction. They could, we heard from our teachers that they always could use more time in math and ELA. So this would provide additional instructional minutes for that. The high school and middle school teacher contact time for students goes from 6:29 to 6:44. That helps us with state mandates, especially because the 15-minute of additional instruction really was critical for us because we were so close to the state mandate that any kind of emergency time risked our state aid and putting that aid in jeopardy. So we have to meet minimum hours and minutes for our students, and this will put us over the top at the high school and the middle school level. Elementary teacher contact time for students goes from 6:15 to 6:30 at the elementary level. And so we're excited about that change because anytime our students can be in front of our teachers, even for minutes longer, it's certainly a benefit to the students. And then the teacher length of day, we started that this year, goes from 7 in most of our buildings to now 7:15 across all of our buildings in all of our schools. So areas of note, since the last time we talked, we began discussing publicly last year once the SHE contract was ratified, especially the 15 minutes of additional instruction. So discussions about this change started taking place last year. Myself, Mr. Feldman, Dr. Wilson, visited every building's PTO, PTA, PTSA meeting the past month and a half to discuss this potential change. We didn't give times to the public yet. But we did tell them about all of the changes about busing, about students who would be riding the bus, about the potential change at the middle school, and answered any questions. We've also discussed it at the MRSB and in the Sweet Home Source magazine. Once the board heard the proposal for the first time from the Building Use Committee back on January 14th, I sent an email to families on January 15th and January 17th. So a total of 10,048 emails were sent out regarding the start and stop times. And we've had, in my office anyway, my email, I had 68 email responses from parents about a response rate about 0.01%. So just to kind of break it down in those 68 emails, we had 14 that were in favor of the change. We had 38 that were against the change, and 16 were neutral because they had a question about, would there be aides on the bus? Yes, there will be aides on the bus. Those sort of questions that popped up during that time. Our main concerns from our families that were not in favor of the proposal, the main one was the 6 through 12 students riding the bus together. That made up about 34.8% of the ones that were not in favor. Then earlier start times at the middle school and the high school were a concern at 28.3% of the responses I've received. Changing work schedules, 23.9%, and then the walking radius was at 13%. So I did wanted to let the board know that since we did meet on the 14th, those were the amount of emails I have received or phone calls from the public, and just wanted to see if the board had any questions.
Go ahead, Marianne.
I got a couple of questions
Sure.
because I kind of took a book from Danny's ideas and I kind of broke them down as we got them. And I found three main things that parents seem to be concerned about. Maybe you can address those
Sure.
tonight. If you do have any answers, you know, we're still new into the, not new, but still getting answers ourselves. Sixth graders riding with 12th graders,
Yes.
that seemed to be one. We did hear from some, oh, I guess I'm not doing this, am I? We did hear hello? No. Oh, anyway, I'll try and be louder.
That's okay.
Special ed students. We
Yes.
did hear from some families regarding
Yes.
special ed and how that would affect it, as well as if there was any thought to parents that had to drop their kids off sooner, would we have, not babysitting, but would we have somebody there for them? So if maybe you could address that.
So the 6 through 12, that was a big topic of discussion for the committee. Obviously, that's a change from what we're used to. There are districts out there that do 6 through 12. There are districts out there that K through 12 ride the bus. I came from one of those districts. Most of our issues on the bus come at the middle school level. So we really feel like having high schoolers on the bus with middle schoolers, older peer interactions will be positive. Older peers they seem to want to ride the bus in a more calm manner at the high school level. We have very few issues at the high school level. But I also, in talking with transportation, we're confident we'll have an aide or monitor on each bus or monitor on each bus to manage anything that may come up. And we will train those aides and monitors to make sure that there is a proper form of communication to the principal at the building if an issue does come up. We could also look at proper seating as well on the bus to make sure that if there is an issue, that it's separated on the ride.
You're not just going to put them on the bus and wash your hands,
No.
say, okay, be gone.
no.
You're going to keep a close eye on this to
100%.
see.
100%. And we'll make sure, like I said, our aides and monitors are trained properly to address, to find issues and address them with the proper administrator. The
Special
second
ed.
question on special ed. Many of our special ed students have mandated transportation or mandated services within transportation, whether it's a wheelchair bus or they will still ride in the same manner that they are riding now. So if they're on a bus with less students, they will continue to get that service. They will continue to be picked up door to door. They will continue to have some separate busing in some instances. So for special ed, there's really no change to what they're receiving now. And if it's mandated in their IEP, obviously we have to follow that mandate. And as far as before school programming, we've already been in touch with Just for Kids. We're going to explore other ideas and areas in there. Maybe there are aides we have aides that we do employ now before school hours to help manage any students that come into the building. We would love to expand Just for Kids into all of our elementary buildings, and they will work with us as long as the demand fits it. So if there are students that are needing before school, we'll make sure Just for Kids is informed and notified, and we will work with them to do it. But like I said, we're also going to look at other programming with our own staff as well.
Great, thank you.
So my question is about the middle school. So with the later stop time, typically clubs, activities, intramurals are before school.
Yep.
So with the new start time being earlier,
Yeah.
are we looking, as long as the teachers are available?
Yes.
It would be an after-school club, so hopefully they wouldn't lose as many clubs as, as there are, or even maybe we can gain more now because they're after school.
That's our hope. And we heard from teachers that they'd be more available to do after-school programming. One of the problems with the before-school club is there's no transportation for those students that want to participate in that club. So it really creates an unequitable situation. Like if I wanted to, I don't know, I'm just throwing one out there. If I want to do math club in the morning, but I can't get a ride, then I can't be in math club. This proposal, and because of the changes we're proposing, would free buses for after-school runs. And we think we could do 4 days a week, 3 to 4 buses a day, which really will eliminate that inequitable situation that's happening in the morning. And that club will definitely be able to run in the afternoon. If the supervisor or the teacher is there and they want to do it, teachers sign up to do these clubs, and as long as they sign up to do it, then we'll make it available.
Dr. Genestri, I know when
Yep.
in our building use committee meetings, the teachers brought to the table about more of the teachers being able to get involved with coaching of the sports after school,
Thank you.
plus some of the kids who are in the middle school being able to play sports. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, right now, a lot of our sports happen like at the high school level, they happen after school, 2:30 practice time starts. That eliminates middle school teachers from being coaches of those sports. So one of the things the teachers did brought up that they feel, and we feel as well, is that more of our teachers will be available to coach now, that because middle school just didn't have access to it because they were teaching during that time. So we really feel that our JV and varsity sports teams, sometimes it's hard to find coaches. This will get us a way to really make sure that we're fully staffed in the coaching department.
And the kids who are playing
I
modified
could
right
speak
now.
to that, if you don't mind, Dr.
Please do.
Genestri.
Yes.
I mean, my daughter's in middle school and she's done varsity and JV sports the last 2 years. It is a pain. I mean, 4:00 bus is leaving, but school dismissal is until 3:45. So we're picking her up early, out of her 9th period class to make it to a bus. Or on a normal day, without a bus going from the middle school to the high school for that, we're picking her up and driving her and her teammates sometimes, and practice starts at 3. And they're not getting there till 4. So, I mean, that will change. And I'm looking, our middle school, there's over the last 4 years, my son's a senior, my daughter's an 8th. Over the last 4 years, I've seen more and more middle schoolers making the JVs and the varsity teams. So I think that would help a lot with them. Unfortunately, I think it's the backside of it is we do have some elementary teachers who do coach. And now their practices are probably going to have to be pushed back a little bit later because of the start times. But I do agree with the more middle school coaches, and that we've had some coaches that are doing modified that would love to move up when we have an opportunity, but they can't. So I mean, there are kind of pros and cons to it, but from the student athlete perspective of it, the middle school kids are going to get their, same time practice starts, and they're going to get more participation time. So.
Thank you.
That being said, I did speak with a parent of a middle school student who is in our musical programs, and, their rehearsals for the plays and those kind of things. They're at school till 4, then they've got practice till 7 or 7:30. They're not getting home to eat dinner and go to bed and homework. So they also were very much in favor of the change at the middle school level so that their kids can participate in their sports and also not have to give up everything else around their extracurriculars.
Mrs. Battaglia, we had our superintendent student advisory board meeting at the middle school today. That came up. There were a couple students in the musical that are excited about this change, this potential change for next year. And that was, they get home very late at night.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments about this?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, and I'd say they're more on the concern perspective, which I have mentioned to the superintendent, and I just think it's important to mention these publicly. And I appreciate, I think this is a balance of, and my perspective is, or my concern isn't so much that we shouldn't make changes, but it's to the degree. Because I look at middle school, I mean, you're going an hour and 35 minutes earlier. It just seems like a big shift. So one thing I wonder about, and a handful of comments here, is with the buses, we're now expecting, my understanding is the buses are going to be full. So I think that's also a question that's going to change the dynamic. If you talk to most bus drivers, I think that they would express a full bus is a lot different, or could be different than, than a bus that's maybe 2/3 filled in terms of delays and things like that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, and I wonder, how that'll be addressed in terms of, getting the buses filled to capacity in order to make this happen. I think that some of the delays may be a little bit longer then, and I would think that maybe the transportation department addressed that.
So they did. One of the things that we talked about that we really don't feel the delay will be there is because they have a common drop-off location and a common pickup location. So middle school and high school students currently have a bus stop, and they would, and that stop could change because of where the students are populated in the neighborhood, but they'll have a common stop. So there will be middle school and high school at the stop. We don't expect to have more stops because of this. We expect to have the same number of stops and drop-offs. So we really don't see, just, if it's half full now and going to full, the only delay will be getting on and off the bus, but there won't be additional stops.
Okay. I think another thing, from my perspective is, getting back to trying to balance these decisions. And the way I look at this is, if we had 20 more buses, would we be making this decision? I don't believe we would. So I think this is a bus issue. And I think, unfortunately, like, our students are the ones that are going to have to, or I guess I'm open-minded to discussion, but this is the discussion I want to have, or the considerations.
Do
or
you want to drive a
understand.
bus?
What's that?
Do you want to drive a bus?
No, board members can't be an employee.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Do
the
you
number
have 20
of bus
friends?
drivers, well, and it's more, and I get it, that's the balance, right? We have to figure that out, that we have a shortage of bus drivers. Because the other side of it is, like, what I'm saying is, if we had more bus drivers, I don't think we would be doing this, because I don't think, and I question if this is really in the best interest of the students. And that, to me, is, when we went through COVID, we constantly said, what does the science tell us? What does the data tell us? What are the numbers showing us? We can all provide anecdotal information, with kids saying, they want to be, have more access to extracurricular activities. Well, how many kids did that affect? This decision is going to affect every student and every family. And if you look at it, the American Pediatric Society said that, and this is, I'm quoting their studies, they said that insufficient sleep in adolescence is a public health issue, and they endorse later start times. The Center for Disease, they said schools that have a start time of 8:30 or later allow adolescent students the opportunity to get the recommended amount of sleep on school nights, about 8.5 to 9.5. Insufficient sleep is common among high school students. It's associated with health risks such as being overweight, drinking alcohol, smoking tobacco, using drugs, and poor academic performance. The American Academy of Pediatrics says it supports school districts delaying start times to optimize sleep and alertness. Studies have shown that sleeping later, 8:30 or later, these are, improves mental and physical health, including decreased anxiety and depression, and better emotional regulation. So I do understand we have a lack of bus drivers, but I think that this, what is concerning to me is that we're going backwards, it feels like, in terms of these times and not forward. I mean, this was brought up by another board member who's no longer here a few years ago, saying that they would have liked to see start times go later for high school and middle school, and now we're going the other way. So it's just, I think it is important that at least, we acknowledge that this, and I'm not saying we're not, and I appreciate all the hard work that the district's trying to do and the committees are trying to do to balance this. But, I think there's a lot of, this is, what does the evidence show us? Some members on the board and in the district are going to say, well, I think these other benefits are more important. I'm not in that camp right now. I think I would rather see not have the 15 minutes of extra time potentially than have these, earlier start times, because I don't know that those benefits outweigh the benefits of, again, the emotional, social pieces that all the science and the studies have shown us. And it's like how we say we're following the data and we follow the science. And yet in this case, I don't feel that we are. I don't think this is in the best interest of the students. I do think some students will benefit from it. I have no question, no doubt about that. But I think across the board, I'm not sure that it benefits, the population as a whole. I admit I don't know what the answer is about the bus driver situation. So, but at this point, I do have those, concerns. And I just think it's important, at least publicly, to acknowledge those and to acknowledge, the number of parents and the kids. I mean, I'm going to have 4 kids going through this change. And, again, I just think it's going to be a struggle for a lot of kids and a lot of parents.
If I can,
Want to respond?
I mean, I would love to, if that's okay, Dirk, if I can go through. So I have a senior and an 8th grader, and I will say the times for the high school and the middle school haven't changed. When my senior went from 8th grade to 9th grade, it was a 4-month struggle to get him up. My 8th grader is going to the high school next year with the 9:15 start time going to 7:25. I'm quite curious how that's going to be. But I'm also curious to see this year's 7th graders who are going to be 8th graders next year with the new start time, their adjustment to the high school, I think is going to be a little bit easier with the same start times. As for, I've read a lot of these studies too. And, as a high school teacher, I mean, my kids are staying up till 3:00 in the morning. So would an 8:30 start time benefit them? Yes. I mean, my high school student, he goes to bed around 11 o'clock. Would an 8:30 help him? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe he'd stay up an hour later. I mean, the subjects are on sleep. And one of the ideas is, well, we'll push times back because then the kids will get that sleep, right? As opposed to, no, I mean, the times are, it's 8.5 to 9 hours. Families have to adjust to that, okay? The one drawback, and I've talked to some parents in Clarence who's been doing this for a long time, they have middle schoolers and high schoolers on the same bus. They actually have a longer ride from the middle school to the high school or the high school to the middle school than we would. And, I'm in the athletic world, so these are athletic parents. Their time at Clarence is like 8:45 to 3:30, right? So that's their high school time, something in that range. I don't know the exact times. But they're getting out of class at 3:30, they're getting changed and on a bus at 4 o'clock, and they're driving to Orchard Park, and they're playing a game at 5 or 5:30 at Orchard Park, and then they're getting on a bus and they're back. So they're out of the house from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Okay, so there is no time to go home. There is no time for work to be done unless you're lucky enough when you're able to work on a bus. You're packing your child 2 dinners or a lunch and a dinner to hopefully that they're eating. So there are pros and cons. Obviously, one of the pros is that they get to sleep in a little bit longer. So if they are doing sports or dance or any other activity at night, you know, there is that opportunity for that little extra hours of sleep. As opposed to for the 6 to 12, I know Clarence is a little bit of a different district of ours, but he said when, you know, the parents that I talked to said most of the 11th and 12th graders aren't on buses in Clarence, that they either drive or get rides, because one of the reasons is they don't want to be on a bus with a sixth grader. That's what parents from Clarence have told me when I talked to a group of them, you know, last week. So, but I mean, Clarence is a little bit different. I think they probably have more students that drive than we do. But that's kind of what they're, you know, there are pros and cons to a lot of the things that are going on. And I know you had made some points, so I wanted to address some of them, you know, with the high school to the middle school time now. Have gone through it, and I know Amy, you've gone through it. It was, and Danny, you've gone through it, and I mean, our times these are the same times that were when I was in high school at Sweet Home in the 80s and 90s. So those times haven't changed, and it is difficult
And I'm
for
okay.
that 8th grader to become a 9th grader, go to school at 7:15 in
You
the
know, I
morning.
think we all can admit there is no perfect solution. I think you've said that. There is no perfect, we're not going to please everybody. We know that. But we're also trying to guide 3,800 kids through, you know, through this time. So that's part of it. And I've read the studies that you've talked about, and I totally agree with that. But then I've also read the studies that say kids that participate in the after-school activities and all those kinds of things after school, better connection with the school. They do so much for their mental health. So there's also those studies. So it's a balancing
Yeah.
act.
I just think those kids have a choice, though. I don't believe that, you know, I'm not suggesting, and I'm not opposed to, like, if our times were the same, I wouldn't be having this discussion. It's just that we're going backwards. That's what bothers me. We're going earlier, even earlier. And, you know, I think I looked at all the schools in, you know, our, like, the 15 closest districts. We're going to be 14th or 15th in the early start time. I think maybe Orchard Park is the only one that's earlier than us. Which oddly, you know, gave me some, you know, actually more confidence to know that we weren't way out there as an outlier. So.
I would, playing devil's advocate here, yes, those students have the choice to be in an after-school activity of some sort. But as families and parents of our children, we also have the choice of backing their bedtimes up an hour. We also have that choice in that, you know, it's the student's choice if they go to bed at 11, 12, 3, 10.
Peters.
I mean,
It's
Peter's
that the
son is a
science
senior, my
doesn't,
daughter's
the
a
science
senior.
isn't about that. The
The
science is
science is about the
Science
length
about the length of
of
sleep.
time.
it's not about the length of most of those reports, if you really, it talks about a child's circadian rhythm, which has to do with more it's not the length of time. It's just that when they sleep at certain times during the day. And I think you know that, right? And that's what it's saying is adolescents and high school kids, their circadian rhythm is further later in the day. And so that's, you know, like telling your kid to go to bed earlier because they have to get up earlier is not what the science is talking about. Because these studies with thousands of high school kids and middle school kids across the country, we're refuting with anecdotal evidence, our own experiences. And I understand, I do that too. But ultimately, I have to set my experience aside and say, what is the science saying? If this was saying it's better to have our kids go to school early, I would be 100% supportive of this. The reason I'm not supporting it is because it seems very clear. There's major national organizations. These aren't like, it's the CDC, it's the American Association of Pediatrics. You know, it's the Center for, or it's a National Health Association. I mean, these are reputable scientific institutions, which we ourselves put credibility in at other times in making decisions. So it's like, I don't think we should dismiss it. And again, I'm not suggesting we're dismissing it. I think it's important we're having a discussion publicly for the public to know that we're
And I don't,
These are challenging issues and we do need to, we're considering all the pieces behind it.
and I've sat on the building use committee for 2.5 years now. And those studies have been talked about. We're not dismissing that science. We're not dismissing the fact that this could be good or bad. We're not saying we're not saying that. We're saying that given the resources that we have and the population that we have and the area that we live in, the best plan that 18 of us that were on the committee could come up with after 2.5 years was something that looks like this.
And who was on that? Who was on that
Can I-
committee?
Teachers, administrators,
Get a word in now?
parents.
Thank you, please. I'd just like to say something about the situation. First of all, I did hear all these concerns from many different parents. One that I'm going to tell you my story from when I was a kid, the 2-mile radius story. I don't care.
Better walk in the snow.
No shoes,
It's
uphill,
actually,
both
it's
ways.
actually
Buses
factual.
didn't
No
exist
hill in
back
between
then.
where
They
you
didn't
Did you wear
have-
Wonder Bread bags on your feet? or-
Did they
You
have
know where
school
Brom-
buses?
You know
back
where
then?
Brompton Road is across Lincoln or the pool and Brighton Golf Course? Now imagine the wind we had in the last couple of days with the 0, walking home from Kenmore East. That was what we were told to do. So thankfully we had a ride once in a while, but I can't support, I know why we're doing this. I think the priority should be focused on what's best for the kids. I agree with Brian on this. And if we need more bus drivers, find more bus drivers. Can we partner with the contracted bus companies? Is there a way to hire more bus people? There's got to be. I mean, they're doing it. Why are they doing it? How much more would that cost us versus how much turmoil and problems this schedule changing is causing? I mean, there's got to be a trade-off there. Again, I'm not criticizing what the Building Use Committee has done and all the work and the input and what you've done for the public and talking about this, especially PTAs and whatever. I don't know, what is the answer to that? How much will it cost us to
Well,
go
first off, you have
find
to
more
find-
bus drivers?
You have to
I
find the
know
humans.
if we contract it out, I guess Don's comment was triple the cost we're spending now on buses. What is that money worth in terms of keeping some kind of cohesive, organized, connected community to our school district? I mean, again, here at the end of the day, it's a priority in my book. What's more important, the children and their families, or finding the ability to find or go? I don't get it. I mean, I know what you're trying to do here. These are our resources, but it's kind of like you've given up. I don't know that we have given up. I think there's a solution out there. I'd just like us to look at that first before we move forward with this. Sorry, that's my view.
I will say that there's a reason why the high school, middle school, and elementary times are proposed to go in this direction. Elementary is door to door. We still have runs that are late to school every day. We've tried diligently to fix those runs. We have mechanics driving, we have front office staff driving. And we have done everything from raise the rates to find drivers, to recruitment days. This is not a Sweet Home problem. This is a across the board problem. I understand, and it is about, we have runs right now that are $700 a day with contracted runs. We used surplus last year to pay for contracted runs. So we are doing a lot with contracted runs. It's just, I don't know how much more we can afford, honestly, with contracted runs. So, I mean, we're not talking hundreds of thousands last year. It was over $1 million, I believe, Don, in excess contracted runs for the district. So I understand
Just
that.
again, Dr. Genestri, how do the contracted bus companies do it?
I'm sorry?
How do the
don't.
contracted bus companies do it? How do these folks
How do they get the drivers?
how do
is
they
what
get
you're
the
asking.
drivers?
But they don't. Because if
They're
their
looking for
driver
as well.
calls in, our runs don't get done.
How do the
Mr.
bus-
Ravenel, what they do is they raise the rates on the districts so they pay more than we pay, and they raise the rates and charge us for their raises. And that's how they find more drivers. So we can go so high with our contracts. It just, we're trying to weigh it all, and it's a difficult balancing act. So, if they raise their rates $5 an hour, we're assuming we're gonna get dinged for that, and then our rate goes from 350 to 400 to 500 per run. So we've seen continual increases, Don, I would say, the past 2 years. It just keeps going up and up and up.
I thought I may have gave it to you already, but is there a way we can partner with them? We have a bus terminal, we have lots of buses. Can we do a trade-off? You give us your drivers, we'll let you use our buses. I mean, there's got to be some out-of-the-box thinking here, because at the end of the day, in my view, what's best for the student and their families? That's all. That's my point.
Yeah.
So,
So can I go? Are you done?
yeah, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I just
Go
don't
ahead,
want
Danny.
to, I know you keep like,
I keep adding.
It's
on,
okay,
right?
I
I'm sorry.
understand.
Go ahead.
so I think I've gotten a lot of emails the last couple of weeks, a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, a lot of social media, a lot of everything. And I hear everybody, I've started, writing it all down and trying to keep tabs on it, kind of like the pie chart that you showed, who thinks what, why they think it. At the end of this, there's no way that we're gonna make everybody satisfied with the decision. It's impossible with 3,800 students and their families. How are we going to come up with one solution that's going to make everyone say, okay, it's gonna be all right, that's fine. So I'm gonna ask a really difficult question. Okay?
Sure.
What happens if we say no? What comes next?
We continue to have mechanics and front office staff drive for us. We continue to be late in our elementary 2 and middle school runs. We continue to have.
Wait, I'm going to stop you there for a minute. I'm just going to reiterate that we are in the business of educating students. So when our students are late to the middle school, they're missing algebra. They're not missing study hall. Like, these are things that we have to think about. There's 3,800 students that their education is being impacted by the fact that we don't have drivers. We have to be creative in what we're thinking and what we're doing. A neighboring district is having the complete opposite conversation because they're going later with their high school and people aren't happy there either. I'm sorry. I've been talking about this for 3 years. I encourage anybody that is having an issue with this to please join a committee. Be involved, not just behind the keyboard in your email. I'm sorry, I can't keep going round and round about it. This is something that I understand it is difficult to change, but I also understand that we've all been there. We've all had to do something that we didn't like to see if we can get to a compromise of some sort. I don't know what that compromise is. And if somebody out there has a better idea, I'm all ears.
I'd like to chime in just about some of the challenges that the bus driver crisis has forced districts to deal with and how they've been dealing with it. Just knowing from personal experience of how it plays out. When you have the front office staff, you have the mechanics driving, you are maxing out and you're one away from not being able to give a bus to kids at any time. So what that plays out to and what districts have had to do to respond to that is develop a system in which they have a calling system to call families to say, your child is not going to get a bus until all the runs have been completed. We are preparing to serve them dinner unless you can come pick them up. Like, that is what is happening. So right now, we are maxing out all of our drivers, but Mr. Feldman will tell you that we have an aging bus driver group of folks out there driving our buses. It's just a matter of time before we have more and more turnover and we don't have the people to fill those positions. The drive, to get the driver's license that you need takes a considerable amount of time on top of that. So even when we sign drivers, I know Mr. Feldman can say more about it than I can, but I know it's not something that we can do instantly. They have to go through a process to make sure they have the proper license. So it becomes this combination of what is the overall impact on school? When they're late to school, they are missing a class, right? But then when they're stuck at school and we have to figure out how we're feeding dinner, luckily, we haven't had to have that talk yet to set up a plan like that. But this crisis is a crisis that's not going away. We've been trying to hire since I've been here in Sweet Home.
We do like using our own transportation people. We have complete control over that. Contracted runs, you lose control, there's no on-time responsibilities. There's no control of who's driving the buses. Obviously, they go through background checks, but they're not our drivers. And you lose a lot of control. So I know, and I'm semi-unfamiliar with contracted, with folks that, or districts that completely use contracted drivers, like a Williamsville, for example. But I know there are negatives to that as well.
So I want to get back to my question because I wasn't done.
Sorry.
It's okay. I wasn't saying that I'm saying no. I'm just asking the question, what happened? So hold on.
Well, I
So
was
I
going to answer
know-
that second part too.
Okay.
Like there is an issue at the middle school with after-school programming and the other thing we would miss out on is the potential to have more after-school runs.
Okay, so again, if the board votes no, do we go back to the building use committee? Goes back to the drawing board to continue to like noodle this out and figure it out? Or is this just a dead issue again for another?
I think if it's a no vote, we would stay with the times that we have. It's just we told our public we would give them time to make adjustments. And I'm not sure there would be time to do that.
So what you're saying is if the board voted yes, this would take place immediately
25, 26, sorry.
next school year.
September
So we would
25,
have,
26.
okay,
Yes.
okay, so that's good. So I know Don mentioned in one of the past few weeks ago about a potential to share services with other districts, that was something that was floating around somewhere. But I know that conversation was in its infancy. Is there any more information on that?
We've been part of a regionalization study with Erie One BOCES. They're putting together task force, I guess, in terms of looking at things. They solicited a bunch of feedback from us on buses, the shortage of bus drivers, the number of buses that we have, the number of buses that we use. So I would say, while there's been some information gathering, there's not a movement afoot to start to look at these issues in terms of transportation. And again, I'll just reiterate what Dr. Genestri has said. For every conversation that we are having at this level, every other district is battling the same issues with transportation. It's not an issue that is going away. I know and I appreciate the thought processes that, there is a happy medium out there somewhere. I like to believe that we've tried. I do. That's all I can say about that.
So in regard to Just for Kids providing before school care, because there was a lot of feedback from families that rely on older students to put younger kids on the bus that would not be able to do that as much, I guess, anymore. It's not a guarantee that they would be able to help us, because I think you
If
said
there's
that
the
if the
demand.
need,
Yeah,
fit
if there's
it.
the demand, they will help us.
And
yes.
that is at a cost to families.
It is, yeah.
Do
And
we
that
know-
I don't know what the cost is off the top of my head, but we are exploring using our own folks as well.
We've reached out to Just for Kids and just kind of made them aware of the possibility of the time changes, so they know of that. you know, they've always said that if there is a demand there, that they would look to expand the program. The program runs at one building right now, it runs at Willow Ridge. For parents that take advantage of that program, they drop their kids at Willow Ridge, and then we bus them to other buildings depending upon their start times. So if there is an interest there, then they would look to expand that. As far as costs go, I can't speak to exact cost. Depends on, you know, the amount of time that you're there and the number of days, number of kids, et cetera. Information is on our website. That pricing is this year's pricing. I don't know whether or not, you know, there'll be a new pricing structure kind of going forward. But they are willing to partner with us and to help in any way that they can. They do offer financial assistance to families that are in need.
As far as start and stop times, we're still, really hasn't been mentioned a lot, that 15 minutes now is contractual. We have
Yes.
to, I mean, that's
It is.
something we have to
Yes.
build into
Yes.
the system. so.
Our teachers and staff are compensated for that time, so it is contractual, yes.
You know, I would just like to say that this discussion, though, I think it is important. And that,
I agree.
like, you know, and I am undecided. Right now, I would be leaning towards not favoring this, but the biggest reason, and I think this is important, that I am on the fence, or, you know, maybe 60-40, with the 40% leaning towards a yes and the 60% towards a no, but that 40% is because of everybody on those committees, the district office, because I have confidence and faith in you, and I'm saying, okay, I get what the studies say, but I also know all the hard work and the trust that I have in everyone. So, you know, a lot of this, it's not about not believing in what, you know, people are trying to accomplish, but it's important that we have a dialogue and an understanding and answers to these questions. And, you know, we're on the board and we don't completely understand or know. So I can understand where parents who are busy, who don't have time to be on a committee or maybe come to a board meeting or whatnot, they're not going to, you know, really get engaged until they see the actual times. And because 90% of the issues we put out there, we don't get any kind of parental response or questions about. So if we get 30, that's a lot on a relative basis, saying that this is an important issue to the public. It's not about 30 relative to 3,600. It's about 30 relative to 0 on most issues. You know, so that to me says that, yeah, it is going to be impactful. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
it
it's
does
worth
touch every student in the
Yeah.
district.
Dr. Genestri, where do we go from here?
So you will take the month, and we're hoping to vote in February.
I got one more thought I wanted to throw in too, and we asked Mr. Kennedy, our bus supervisor, he's put hundreds of hours into this, I know he has so far, but we haven't asked him to go even deeper. One of the things you mentioned, you figured the bus run would be about the same time. My own thought is they may end up being a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to do, because I look out my window and I have 3 bus stops right in front of my house. I just happen to live in a T intersection. So, I mean, so right now there's 3 kids that are there for the high school and there's 4 kids there for the middle school. I'm thinking you could be able to fill buses faster with less stops because you're going to end up combining them that way. So it might actually move a little bit quicker. Will it make a dramatic change? It might only change things by a few minutes, but I think it will help. But that would be a lot of work to figure out that we don't need him to do right now for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, if thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Johnson. If we do get the green light to move forward, then Scott's got a lot more work to
Oh,
do.
sure.
To start the routing process and seeing what are the most efficient runs, you know, and I will say this, that elementary run is our longest. It is a door to door right now. And it's staggered into 2 separate runs. I think one of the things with the committee, putting the elementary run as the last one, because it is an issue of getting to school on time. There's a lot more leeway by having the elementary, because it is door to door, there's a lot more potential for delay. And so the elementary run as the last one, really, we looked at it, Scott looked at it, Mr. Kennedy. It will really help us with on-time delivery to school and on-time delivery to home. It's not only door-to-door pickup, but a parent must also be home in the afternoon for a student, for us to drop off that student. And if the parent's not home, it delays the bus severely. And right now, because of the ripple effects, it would also delay the middle school the way it is. So one of the things that the committee was really adamant on, and I think unanimous on, was having the elementary one as the last one of the day. To Mr. Leibel's point, we did discuss the early times. It is a concern, but the more you push back the high school and the middle school, the more you have to push back the elementary school in this proposal. And that pushes it later and later into the day. So that's why the high school is that early. It's not because, we want to get them out early. It's because we really were concerned about our working families and anything past 9 o'clock for the elementary school. Now Maple Mere and Willow Ridge are 9 o'clock right now, but anything other past that, we really thought it would put a burden on the families. And that's why the elementary is proposed as the last one. And that's the earliest we can do it.
The quarter mile, how many families does that affect? Do we know that?
He gave a number and I don't remember it.
We don't know off the top,
Okay.
not yet. Again, to Mr. Johnson's point, we believe, in that radius that we can pick up a bus in each of the elementary buildings, but how many families that is, we've not dug that deep yet.
And right now, when you say door to door, so what's happening is parents aren't home or someone's not home. So the bus driver has to go around the block again until that parent comes home
This is,
and then be able to drop off. So that's what's,
Yes.
so just for the sake of example, the first elementary group buses are Glendale and Heritage. If Don Feldman's on the Glendale bus and the bus driver pulls up to my house and my parent or an adult is not there, they call into the dispatch. The dispatch then calls home, calls the school to try and get somebody at home. They sit and wait. Then once if there's no contact established or no arrival time for the parent, they finish the run. They go all the way back around. Then they try and take the kid home one more time. And then if that kid is not, if little Don Feldman's mom or dad are not home, Don Feldman goes back to Glendale and then that bus picks up the next route. So you can see how long of an instance that is to delay the elementary two, which is Willow Ridge and Maple Mere, then ultimately the middle school as well.
and I know you talk with parents who habitually maybe this happens with, but if it happens even with a few parents, it's going to back up.
It happens
things
with one parent.
It backs it up considerably.
One parent, it delays the bus at least 5 to 10 minutes.
So hence putting the elementary as the last,
Yeah,
that
we-
will not throw off the rest of the schedule.
Good questions.
Dr. Nestor, you disconnected, so you're going to have to reconnect.
Okay.
Oh, you're
Do I-
there. You're good.
Oh, there we go. I'm happy to report, we did receive our financial transparency report from the New York State Comptroller's Office. And no designation is the best designation to have with the comptroller. So our fiscal stress that measures the financial solvency and financial health of the district, received a no designation score for 2024, so fiscally strong. And then the environmental stress measures things like poverty levels, subgroup activity, our immigrant and ENL population. And then the comptroller also rated us as no designation, which means we're moving forward in a good manner with our finances and our environmental piece in the eyes of the New York State Comptroller. Our official Sweet Home Panther process contest continues. I think the students have a February 7th deadline to get in their submissions. And if you were looking at our social media pages today, you would have seen students working on their concepts. Each building will have at least one concept in the top 10, and then our community will get to vote on those concepts at the May 20th vote. So wanted to say one more time, please, to our students out there, get your concepts into your art teacher. Our art teachers have been fantastic in this process to really get it going, and we know submissions are flowing in daily now. So exciting times, and to get an official Panther logo for the district. And this Sunday, February 2nd, is our Music Fest from 12:30 to 4:15 at the Center for the Arts at the University of Buffalo. It's going to showcase our musical talents of our students throughout the entire district. We're excited to have it at this venue, the big stage, but also will house our big crowds as well. So we encourage our entire community to come out February 2nd for a great day of music at the University of Buffalo. And that's what I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, if nobody has any questions, our upcoming events, our calendar is a little short this week because of the short turnaround to the next board meetings.
Special note of the McTeacher night at McDonald's on Sweet Home tomorrow from 4:30 to 7:30.
Additional special note, Wednesday is no school for the Lunar New Year.
The Lunar
Thank
New
you
Year.
for bringing that up.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to open session, the first one. As per board policy 1512, we hold 2 open sessions at each meeting. The first session is limited to comments on the agenda item for tonight's meeting. Board of Education recognizes the importance in maintaining an open dialogue with community members. In doing so, community members choosing to speak at the Board of Education meeting are bound by the terms outlined in this policy and must conduct themselves in a manner consistent with this policy. The District Code of Conduct and all laws and regulations that govern the operation of the Board of Education. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer and announce their name, address, and if appropriate, group affiliation. Non-district residents must include the name of their business or how they do business with the Board of Education. Statements should be made to the board president, not individual board members. Participants may not discuss specific individuals or issues that fall under executive session. Speakers must be at least 16 years of age and are limited to 3 minutes each. Speakers may not transfer their time to another participant. The total amount of time for each public participation period is 30 minutes. All speakers in this open session must state which agenda item they are speaking on. We do have 2 people signed up so far tonight, so I'm going to allow them to go first. Andrew Olunik. I hope I said that right. Olenek. All right.
Close.
Well, I tried. I'm sorry. Yes, please take the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Olenek. I live at 106 Park Haven Drive. I'm here with my wife. The agenda item we wanted to speak to was the proposed time change. The discussion got into what we were concerned about, which is the whole idea that start times are moving earlier, which is in opposition to what the APA recommends. And I certainly appreciate all the difficulties, the trade-offs that you have here. But maybe what struck us the most is when the email came out with the proposed changes, and here's all the things we were considering, the idea of impact on educational outcomes and student health and wellness wasn't like in part of that framing at all. So I don't know if that was just a minor oversight because it sounds like it was considered, but I think it's pretty important that that actually be communicated to the public as well, is here's how we're balancing that. So I'm going to follow up with an email because I do have pointed questions. One of them being was there a report that comes out of this committee that kind of documents how how you got to the recommendations and how would we view something like that? I think that would be interesting too. I work in higher education. I'm in engineering education, actually. My wife is a kindergarten teacher. So in addition to the APA, there's just our own kind of background in this stuff, thinking about it too, and running into it on a daily basis. So I just want to underscore the issues that Brian brought up about, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going in the wrong direction. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Catherine Smizer, did I get it right? Yes. My K-12 is coming in handy.
Hi, my name is Catherine Smizer. I live at 4034 Wrench Road, Unit 7. I work at the middle school. I have worked at the high school in a service role capacity. I have 2 students currently at Willow Ridge. And so I'm a parent and an employee and just a general concerned citizen as well. Incidentally, we did this when I was in high school. We did this theoretically, right? So should school times be moved earlier or later? I can tell you, my students, my two children are on the bus that is consistently latest arriving to the middle school. My children are on the bus in the afternoon for 55 to 65 minutes. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. To the point about school times being moved drastically, I will say I am in support of moving the times. I will say, however, there is merit to the thought that that moving school times and having enough bus drivers, moving school times may not be the correct answer, because when we split the elementary school students, my children, my own personal children, went from a 35-minute run to a 45-minute run. And then from last year to this year, went 45 minutes to 55 or 60 minutes. I was putting my 6-year-old on the bus for 45 minutes after school. It was ridiculous. Now I was like, oh, maybe this year it'll be better. Nope, this year it's 65 minutes. So I will say that there is merit to just remembering that minor changes they completely backfired for my children. So maybe a big change is kind of what's necessary. Speaking as someone who now works at the middle school, I would just say that I think there will be a great deal more flexibility for students, for teachers, and for parents in general, because right now we get out at 4 o'clock, and I think one thing that is overlooked is the degree to which sweet home activities are then sort of disregarded by students who are in club activities, right? So if you have to turn around, if you say play travel hockey or baseball or whatever, and you have practice at 5 or 5:30, my daughter is a gymnast, and her practice starts at 5 o'clock. She'll be in the middle school next year. There is no chance she's participating in a sweet home activity. It's just, it's not going to happen, right? Because you get out at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. There's no way you're not going to be able to do that. So I just wanted to say that I thought that would be an effective solution, though I do have some reservations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Hi, good evening. Joshua Corman, 145 East Maplemere. I want to speak on the part of the proposal that deals with 6th graders and 12th graders being on the same bus. That's my main concern with it. I have a 6th grader. When you talked earlier about the concern over possibly missing part of first period, that in my grand scheme of concerns, that is way lower than the things that could go wrong with my 6th grader being on a bus with 12th graders. I know that it was mentioned that Clarence does it the same way. I don't know how many other major suburban districts here in Erie County do it the same way. I would love to have that information. And I guess my question that I would hope the board would ask themselves is, if putting 6th graders on the bus with 12th graders is not a widespread practice, why is that? And I would ask the board to considered the students' well-being, particularly in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Name's Daryl Ryan. I live at 10 Dexter Terrace. I guess my biggest thing is, I think it's a little bit odd that a building use committee is deciding transportation issues. I would think that you might have a transportation committee to deal with those things. But the biggest thing for me is the email that was sent out didn't even say if it was actually going to solve your transportation issues. Like you said tonight that we have front office staff mechanics driving buses. Is that actually still part of the plan if you make all these changes, or are we actually going to have a full fleet of drivers that are actually be able to make these routes? So I think there's a lot of missing gaps in the information that was provided to us.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Amy, could you just clarify for people too? We do not give a response, but will someone be getting back with them?
Yeah, I can. Thank you for doing that, Mary Ann.
Yep.
Thank you
I
for
said, thank you for
clarifying.
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 Okay. Okay, up next is new business. May I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items A through E and G through I? We're going to vote on F separately.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Hold on. Hold on, please.
Yes, sir.
Are you voting on two sections separately? Is that what I heard, or do you?
We're voting on A through E and G through I, and then we'll vote on F separately.
F is a separate.
That's the field trip one.
Bear with me, please. Okay, so the first and second readings, are we voting on, how are we voting on the first reading here? Just table till a second reading, whenever that is? Or how did, I don't understand the vote for the first reading. What are we voting for on the first reading? We accepting that as policy, or is that accepting that as the first reading and then becomes the second reading next
reading.
month?
Yes.
I just need a clarification.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm okay with that. And then the second reading, we're accepting those as policy.
As policy, yes.
Terminated policy.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Just so you know, we, in at least the handful of years, we haven't waived any of the readings anymore. I know in the past, back when we were on the board together before, we did waive some of those second readings. It just went ahead and passed it. We haven't done that in
You don't do that.
at least 3 years.
Any more questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, can I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item F?
I will make that motion.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, I'm involved in it.
I
can
got
vote
it.
on it.
All right, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Okay, that brings us to informational items. Maisha, would you like to start?
Regents Week had just passed, and throughout January, student government had many resources in order to help students prep for these exams. For example, students held tutoring sessions through National Honor Society and our new upper and lower class peer mentorship program. And in the talk of AI previously, I wanted to mention how I know many students who used AI and benefited from it for preparation, and many students, many teachers who even encouraged AI to make study guides and help prep. And I think that was very effective in retaining information better for students. As for committees, our technology committee is working on a virtual student-run help desk, an esports tournament, and adding printers into the school library as a resource for students if they can't print at home. Our athletics committee has started planning for the winter prep rally, and we're continuing our effort in having the fitness center open for students throughout the school day to boost productivity, well-being, and convenience. And with the help of Mr. Skumo, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Bailey, we're finalizing monitoring rules, and we hope to have it open within the next 2 weeks. Our food and nutrition committee will be meeting with Central Kitchen in February to talk about additions such as more options for students with dietary restrictions. And lastly, our senior class council is trying to host a senior trip again this year. We're aware it wasn't able to happen the last few years, so we're looking into the setbacks. And with the help of Mr. Harriger and Mrs. Pinkowski, the senior class is looking to do a canned food fundraiser throughout the community and all Sweet Home school buildings.
Great, thank you so much. Marianne?
I have nothing but the McDonald's tomorrow because I talked last time because I didn't think I'd be here, so.
Mr. Johnson?
I'm supposed to have a long list, but I've been a little busy lately, unfortunately. I do have a couple quick things. We had our Erie County Association of School Boards Legislative Team meeting last Thursday. Days are all running together, and despite the crummy weather, I was happy to see we had a quorum and then some. It was a whiteout on the way home. I'm assuming it was the same your way, Dave. But couple things. We had a presentation by a gentleman that's chief operating officer from the Black Passport Group. And he was explaining to us about some things that they can do to help search out potential school shootings and other school issues online. And he has some of the tools. This guy used to work for the federal government and some real high-end operation stuff, and he's retired from there now. Some of what he actually talked about was downright scary about the abilities that his company already has to do, but it was very interesting. And he's hoping that, at the various school districts around and the leaders from the legislative team can work with their legislators to at least get them to start thinking about this type of stuff. It's a fascinating presentation. So something I'm going to look into too. And I know some of our counterparts. The other big piece of it is we talked about, and we actually had two superintendent representatives, Dave, Andrea's last name, I'm sorry, is joining us from Akron. Thank you. I couldn't think of her last name. She's taking over as a superintendent representative to the legislative team. Dr. Brian Graham from Grand Island has been our representative the last few years. They both talked to us a little bit about the governor's proposal for the cell phone ban, which is not quite what we had been led to believe it was going to be once she put it out. Up until now, our legislative team had taken a neutral stance on it because we were waiting to see, because we expected them to be pushing more of it down to us. With what we've heard recently, we actually formed a quick subcommittee so we can get a more responsive answer, that we want to make sure that we have the control and don't have the whole thing forced down on us. We're going to be sharing that with our legislators shortly. So those would be the two high points that I've got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leibel, Brian?
Yeah, just want to mention I attended the PTSA meeting the first Monday of the month. Policy committee meeting was the next day. Tomorrow there's a policy committee meeting. Won't go into detail on those pieces in the interest of time because I think those are not a lot of, we've already discussed a lot of the issues in the past. I did want to mention and just congratulate the middle school. I attended their chorus event earlier in the month, and they did a great job there. That was for sixth grade chorus. And then I don't know if we've mentioned this, I don't remember, but Coach Zimmer being
Coach of the year.
the coach of the year for Section 6. I just wanted to recognize him and the great job he did with the football team this year.
All right, thank you. Dirk?
Again, I think I spoke last time about Heritage Heights. We did post those, or Sherry posted the minutes online for your discussion. I also am attending this conference in DC next weekend, and I sent around I think the priorities and the talking points, and also the appointment schedule I'll be attending with. It doesn't look like I have many, but we'll try to, as we've done in the past, add some additional congressmen to the schedule. It's kind of exciting to be in DC with a lot of the with a lot of the changes going on, and to see where education is going to fit in with all that. So again, if you have any additional thoughts for me to bring, again, on that email, please email me back. Dr. Genestri was able to give me some answers to specifics in our priorities for Sweet Home. So I'll bring that with me so that we can have those conversations. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danny,
I did PTA meeting at Glendale last week. And that's really about it. I did want to encourage everyone to, if you are a podcast listener, to go check out Sweet Home Speaks. This week featured Joy Beto. She's a student in the district that actually owns her own business. She makes cookies, and I received some for Christmas this past year. And I got to tell you, they were amazing. So if you are looking for some really delicious, beautiful cookies, Baked by Beto is her Instagram. Check out the Sweet Home Speaks podcast. It's adorable. There's all kinds of kids from the district that go on there and speak about things. So it's a good listen. So thank you, Christine. It's very entertaining. That's it.
okay, Peter?
So I attended the Willow Ridge PTO meeting back in early January, a couple weeks ago. Dr. Genestri, Dr. Wilson, Mr. Feldman were there. They gave updates on the capital project, the proposed time changes and that we discussed earlier, and the need for a new Panther, or not the need for a new Panther, our voting on and the development of our new Panther. They have the Sweetheart Dance coming up Friday night, right? The 31st. And then they're going to have a multicultural night in March. Just a couple of things that I have upcoming. Friday, February 7th is the baseball meat raffle. That's to help fund a trip to Myrtle Beach that we just voted on. And also for game day uniforms and hats and other needed materials for the baseball program. And then you could see any baseball player, modified JV or varsity for tickets. And then also on February 13th, NYSIT is having a speaker to come in and talk about, as Mr. Johnson had put forward earlier. It's called Disconnected, the importance of cell phones, or the impact on cell phone, social media technology and children or on children's schools and learning, where that goes along with the governor's proposal about banning cell phones next year. So I hope to do that on the 13th, and I will report back on that. So.
Great, thank you. I attended the high school PTSA meeting and the building use committee, which I've spoken on both of them already, so we don't need to go into that. Other than that,
Do we have a meeting? When's our next meeting? Board meeting?
yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay, so does that include the 8th? I just want to remind people we're having a budget meeting on the.
The budget meeting is on the 8th,
Yeah.
Correct.
and
At 8 a.m.
our next board
Is the
meeting
4th.
is the
4th and the
4th.
11th, because the
4th, so we'll-
18th is
because the
vacation.
18th
So
they're
we'll, right,
off.
so we'll
Yep.
mention it then.
So we have one more meeting before our budget
Thank
meeting.
you.
A lot of meetings in
Lot of
1 week.
meetings.
Okay,
Better.
moving on. That brings us to our second open session. Does anybody want to speak again or now? No? Okay.
Okay.
May I have a motion and a second on personnel items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, but I want to just comment here again. Maggie McDonald's really retiring?
Really retired.
Really retired.
Is that why you're voting no? Are you voting yes or no?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. And that brings our meeting to a close. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will not be returning.
Oh, okay.
Will not be going to executive.